Welcome back to Computer Aided Design for Quilters, Absolute Beginners. This is Class 3, and I'm going to show you how to quilt your signature. So starting from whatever screen you have, you want to get to Pattern CAD. For me, I use this new pattern button, but you might just have a Pattern CAD button that you're going to hit. That brings us into the Pattern CAD screen. If I want to make my signature, I'd like it to look as much as like my signature as possible. So I've printed out and taken a picture of my signature, which we're going to get by going up here to Background and Load Image. This brings up the photos that I have. And from the photos, I'm going to select my signature from right here. It's a messy picture, but it doesn't really matter because the picture's not part of what I want anyway. So now I have my signature loaded on, and I can go ahead and start to draw. If you have questions about any of the specifics of what I'm going to do that I don't explain to you today, try going back to one of my first 2 videos that describe in excruciating detail some of the buttons and capabilities of Pattern CAD. But for now, what we want to do is draw this design. It's a little small, so I'm gonna hit fit, see if that makes it any bigger. No luck. So I'm just gonna zoom in, and now I can see my signature, and that looks like a great size to work with. So over here, there's the pattern buttons, and you can either draw or edit, and we definitely want to draw at this point. And for most curves, uneven curves, I use this spline button because splines have 2 handles on them, which makes it easy to make them match just about any curve. I also want to be sure that I'm in continuous line. For many of you, you'll have a button that says continuous line over here, and you can just click it. But since I have an older program, I have to do a few more steps. I'm going to go to Edit, and then Preferences, and over here's continuous line, and it is checked. Also, because I was doing these designs, some designs for me earlier, I had narrowed the line width down and made the handles a little smaller, and I'm going to make all of that a little bigger again so that you can see what I'm doing. We might have to change that later because in a tight space, those big handles and those big nodes are difficult to manage. So this is going to be continuous line. Thankfully, it's my signature. It does go in a continuous line, so we don't have any worries. I start here and start drawing my line. The line shows up as straight because we're going to use the handles to curve it later. So this is exactly what I want right now, a line reaching from here to here. Later, and let me go ahead and show you. We'll go to Edit, and when I go to Edit and select both ends of this, I get these boxes or handles, and then I can pull my line into the curve that I want to make it match the other line. But I don't want to do that segment by segment. I want to do it after I've drawn my entire signature. So my line so far is from here to here. Because I said continuous line, all I have to do is choose the next spot I want my line to go to, and a line appears, and a line appears, and a line appears, and we just go all the way around like this. When we get to the eye, I need to make a few little adjustments, and I'll show you why. I haven't worried too much where my nodes land over here, but once we get to this eye, I want to make sure I have a node at the beginning of the part where the letter, where the sewing is going to repeat, so I'm going to sew out and back along the same line. So I need to make sure I have a node at the beginning of that and a node at the end of that. And then I come right back to the node I started with and then just keep clicking along. And click and click. I'm going to go through this whole thing because I've noticed that for this particular project, there are good reasons to do each one of the letters because they turn out a little bit differently. There's a few edges that need to be, or a few procedures that I need to show you as we go through my name. Now, this would be one of the first ones. As we make an A, when I draw my A, I go up and around, and then I go back. So right now, I've done the up and around part, and then I'm going to come back and click here. And then I don't want to make my next click over here because it'll bring all these lines too close together. So I'm just going to click here and here and then up here again. As you can see, this makes that kind of a mess, and I'll show you what we're going to do with that later. And click and click, 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 click. I'm kind of hurrying through this, but you're going to see it'll turn out really cool anyway. Because when we get to editing, we're going to dress it up. I noticed that when I drew this out, I actually drew this straight up and down, but that's not how I do my signature. So I will change it to match more the way I do my signature than what it looks like here. And I also noticed that when I sign, I bring my line all the way back and cross my T. So right now, this design, if we look at optimize, it's just all stringy going around all the way to the end. So we're going to have to add the curves to it now. So I come down here to the bottom and say OK. And we go over to edit. Now, I mentioned that my handles and nodes were going to be a little bit too big. If we zoom in, it helps because the nodes and handles stay the same size. And so we get a little more spacing between them. Oops. I want to get back to my design, wherever it went. There we go. All right. So now that I've zoomed in a little bit, you can get some more spacing between nodes, and that's very helpful. So we did that first line, that nice curve, and the curve matches up to my signature underneath. And we can go along and do each one individually. I can highlight each node, grab the handle, and pull it over, and grab the handle and pull it over. Unfortunately there I grabbed one of the nodes too, and I didn't want to do that, so I'm going to just hit undo so that everything goes back where it's supposed to be. And in this case, I'm going to go back to my preferences and make those handles smaller. You guys won't be able to see them as well, but I won't be running into them as I show you how to do the rest of the work. All right, so we have this handle right here that needs to be pulled out. There we go. Now that one looks good. We can highlight this, and as you'll see, one of these boxes is now also selected, one of these handles, and we don't want that right now because I want to be able to adjust both of them. So sometimes it can be a little bit of a trick. There we go. Once I do this for a while, I get used to it and it's not so time consuming. All right, we're going to grab these handles and stretch them down, and then another handle and stretch it. So this is one of those times that I wanted to make sure I showed you about. Now you can see we have these two boxes right here, and I can't tell which box goes to which line until I grab it and pull it. But one of the easier ways to know then which line you're working with at this point, and it shows up with all of these handles and all of these nodes, is simply to unselect all and then go back and specifically select the line segment that you're interested in. So now I know exactly which handles adjust this line. I'm going to keep moving along here. We'll pull this down, pull this down. Looks nice. And then here, pull it around just like this. Get over here. You'll decide for yourself kind of how long you want your splines to be. Each spline can have 2 bends in it, so it can fit around a lot of interesting spaces. Oops. So as you can see, I accidentally picked up and moved my entire project, and I don't want to do that. So all I have to do is go back to undo. It sits back where it's supposed to, and now I can go ahead and move again the way I want to. And then this line here, it will be hard to tell which handles belong to this line once I highlight it. So I'm just going to unselect all and then choose this and this, and then I can easily see which handles go with this line. There we go. Well, I'm not real fond of that. Okay, so the next thing we run into is this. I mentioned that I'm going to unselect everything. Sorry. I mentioned that I want this line to be up and down in the same place. And so I have a line that goes up and a line that goes back, but I want to make sure they're one on top of the other. So there are 2 nodes here, and I'm going to try to zoom in on that just a little bit more. If I select it and zoom, it'll zoom close to the place that I'm have selected instead of just choosing some spot on the design. So there are 2 nodes here. Let me try to show you those a little bit better by again increasing the handle size. So those 2 nodes, I want them to snap together to be in exactly the same place. And so I'm going to hit this button, snap selected. The selection goes away, and now they're just one node. So my line goes up and then back. I'm going to highlight this again because obviously it's not right on the spot I want it to be. And I'm going to drag it over and put it right there. Now though, this is no longer a straight line, nor does it really match my line. So I'm going to select this one and pull it over. And it's close, but it's not what I do when I write my signature. I go up and I come right back down. So if I select both ends of this spline, you can see that these handles are not lined up one right on top of the other. That means that those lines are not going to sew one right on top of the other. You could spend all day trying to line those things up, but the easiest thing to do at this point is to just reset the whole line. And to do that, you right click, go down to line type, choose spline, and then you see those snapped right together, and with the line, the lines one right on top of the other, the handles are right on top of the other, everything is nice and tidy here. I'm going to unselect this and then select this so we can get this little bit done. And I don't know if you guys can see, but right over here, there's kind of an area that's still sharp. And this would be a signature, so it's supposed to be smooth. Maybe when I go to optimize, I can show you. Yeah, down here, I come down to the bottom of the L, and then it gets sharp. So we don't want that. So we're going to move the actual node a little bit so that the line matches better. sometimes I find that when I'm working with the splines, I just need to move the endpoints around so I can get nice smooth curves. All right, onto the Z. Let's smooth this out. Sorry, I have a really long name, and Liz wasn't going to be enough information for you guys to see how I did things. Oops. So if you can see here, what I just did was I grabbed an unselected node and pulled on it while all of these were selected, and I just made a mess of things. All I have to do is go back and hit unselect. It all resets, everything's good. And now I'm going to hit did I say unselect? Sorry, undo. First I hit undo, which is this one up here. Then I went and hit unselect so that I don't have all of those moving all at the same time. And now I'm going to come here, choose this and move it, and choose this. Kind of curve this design up and around nicely like that. This node isn't quite where I want it, so I'll move it. Move this carefully over. I've still got it zoomed pretty good, so you guys can really see this design nicely. But we're going to skip ahead to the A. If you remember, I said that I draw my A, I go up and around and then back. So we're going to do the same thing we did with the I, only this time we're going to have to curve the line. First, I want to snap my ends. Oops, because these are already selected, this isn't going to work. So I need to unselect all. Then I select these and hit snap selected. Now those are both one right on top of the other. And on the other end, I want to do the same thing. So I select them, then I click snap selected, and now this point is 1 point and this point is 1 point. My lines in the middle, though, you can see are off from each other, and when I show you their handles, you'll really be able to tell. Those handles aren't anywhere near each other. So what I do next is I turn it back into a spline. I reset it. I make them both fresh new splines by right-clicking, going down to line type, spline, and then they snap together like this. Now I can screw this all up again. If I just grab one of these boxes that are unselected and drag it, I'm going to separate my lines again. And I don't want that. I want them to stay together. I want them to move together. If I want things to move together, I need to have them selected. So I'm going to undo this, and maybe I can undo it once more. No, it's not going to work. So I've undone, and I'm going to right click, go to line type, spline. Now these are right on top of each other all the way down. Now I want to select these boxes, and then I'll use those boxes, those handles, to get my shape. In this case, what I want to do, I need to get that to curve up and around nicely. When they're both selected, I can do it. All right, you know what? I just did it, and so that we're going to be happy with that. I'll show you something else later. So we've got that done. Now we choose this one, and I'm going to unselect. So let me show you what I was doing wrong. When I grab this selected box and move it, then every other box that's selected will move too. In fact, if I choose the unselected box and move it, every selected box will move too. When I move boxes that are selected, when I move boxes and boxes are selected, all these selected boxes will move with me. So I just made a total mess of my pattern. I'm going to undo and get myself back to where I was. This is a good reminder too that while I'm doing a design, I usually save it a lot. I save it multiple times during the process because I never want to be stuck having destroyed my design and having to go back and start from the beginning. There are several ways to save your design. Under File, you can just go to Save Pattern. It opens up the box. You can name your file whatever you'd like. I'll call mine Test because I really like, no, actually, sorry, I'm going to name it Signature. I have a couple of signatures in here already, so we'll call it Signature 1. Enter and save. So now that's saved. So even if I screw up, I have a saved copy. All right, let's go on. So if I want to move this little segment, I want to unselect that box, but select both of these nodes. There we go. So that I can pull that box over. I don't know if you saw, I had accidentally grabbed the node and that's why that whole thing moved. All right, now we're going to unselect, but I want this. When the handles are big, I have a big problem. So sorry, but we're going to go back to Preferences and I'm going to give myself small handles again so that I can move them around a little bit more easily. So from here, we select this and then I can move it. And if I select this, I move this, and I select this, and I can move this and this. I think that gives you a pretty good idea of where we're going here. Let's look at Optimize. So now we have the signature so far, E, L, I, Z, and then we skipped over to the A, which I haven't completed yet, and it goes all the way from beginning to end. This is all one big piece. And if you'll remember, in order to make it so from the E to the cross T, from the green to the red, it'll automatically do that. But if I want to change it the other way for some reason, then I highlight the segment and I click, and then the start goes to here and the end goes to here. Someone asked how you change start points in the design, we know how to change start points in the design, so the question is how to change end points. So let me show you a bit about that. We'll hit OK. I'm gonna zoom out so that I can find my design. Hopefully, there it is. And then if I unselect, we'll select this and zoom in. There, it helps me center it. Okay, so we're on Edit. This is my design. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more so we get an idea of what's going on. Let's say that I really feel like I want this to sew in different parts. I want the start point to be here for some crazy reason. The best way that I know how to do that, to change the start point, is pretty simple. You just choose your point, and then somewhere on your menu, for me it's under Tools, there's a button that says Move Start Point. So now we have a start point here. If we go to Optimize, you can see that I have a start point here. It goes all the way around this way. It ends here. Then it jumps back to here and goes around. If I animate my stitching, and I'm going to hit check for breaks just so you can see how this works. If I animate my stitching, I start here. I go to there. Then it wonders if I want to remove that break. That means it would sew all the way from here to here. So I don't want it to do that. And then it sews the second part, which apparently only took a split second. So now we have a broken up design, and honestly, the more common problem that you're going to find is that you have designs that maybe have accidental breaks in them, or you've drawn an extra part in and you want it to fit back together and sew more smoothly instead of jumping all over the place. So let me show you what happens if we accidentally or intentionally split apart something like this. So I've now pulled apart the two ends just before the end of my signature. If I go to optimize, now I have part A that sews this direction and ends here. Part 1, sorry. Then we have 2 sews along here and ends here. And then 3 starts here and sews along this direction. If you want to change where things end, you want the part where your end point is going to be labeled with the highest number. So if it's part 1, that's not going to end there, it's going to start there. In our case, we have part 1, part 2, and part 3. So if we want either the beginning or the end of part 3 to be the end, then it's easy. All we have to do is we can either reverse it or we can leave it the way it was. But what if we want this point, which is the beginning of this point, which is the beginning of part 2, to be our end point? How do we make that happen? The easiest way to do that is to make it the highest number. So we want, instead of number 2 here, it's got to be number 3 because we want it to sew last, and we're going to want it to end here. And then this is the spot we want to end, so we just highlight it and click. This turns out to be a little more confusing than it is in my head, so I'll probably have to go over it again in order to make sure that everyone understands. But I'm just going to kind of repeat the whole system now so that you see what I'm saying. In order to make an end point, you want the sew order segment to be the highest number, because that'll make it the last segment. And then all you have to do is highlight the line and flip the front and back sides. So let's say now, right now, we've got segment 1 sews from here around and stops there. But let's say that I want the end point to be right here. I want the whole design to finish sewing here. Let's do animate and check for breaks so I can show you. See, it's starting here now, but I don't want it to start here. I want it to end here. So this is what I need to do. I need to make this the highest number, and this down here for the sew order is 3. So if I click here, this is going to become a 3. Well, it would become a 3, except that now we've got it all in the right order. Sorry about that. Let's hang on just a minute. I'm going to go back a step and leave us all messed up again. And then, oh, this is exciting. I did this once before and almost had a heart attack. So when I optimized like that and was moving things around, you'll see that now my lines on this design just look crazy. I don't even know what this is all about, but it's not very pretty. All I have to do, I'm glad I've saved it for one, but all I have to do is click undo and it goes back the way it was supposed to. I'm not sure how we ended up with so much chaos in there, but that's what happens. All right, and I'm going to zoom out so I can find my name again. There I am. And I'm going to select a section and then zoom in and then unselect all. All right, so I'm going to break this up one more time. Let's actually break these two segments apart. That makes more sense. So now this is the start. I can tell it's the start because it's green. And this is the end, and I can tell it's the end because it's that double circle. If I was to click another point, it would continue from there because I have continuous line selected. If I go up to optimize, you can see now there's a start point here, and then we go to here. That's number 1. Then number 2 goes from here to here. Then number 3 goes from here around and ends here. So if I want this point now to be the end of all of my sewing, I want this to get done first and then to come over here and sew across this way. This is what I do. I go down to my sew order button. I click it up to 3 because I want this to be the 3rd segment. And then I want my end point to be here. So I highlight and click. Now, when this sews, it's going to sew this segment, number 1, then number 2, and then it's going to sew here and end right there. When I figured out how to do this, it really improved my ability to edit my designs because I didn't have to worry that I was going to have chunks that didn't sew in the correct order anymore. All right, so that's the end of class 3 of computer aided design for quilters, absolute beginners. If you liked my video, please click like. Feel free to subscribe. I'm going to try to put one of these out about every week or 2. Thank you very much.